Stop! You've been combining images all wrong. You don't need a channel or a mask or a calculation. Watch this video and up your game in no time. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these clouds and we're going to blend them with this lightning. Now, the lightning and the clouds are on independent layers, and that makes blending pretty darn easy inside Photoshop, except I want something a little more elaborate. I want to be able to take these bolts, these big bolts of lightning, and these medium bolts of lightning, and these fine little hair-like tendrils of lightning, and weave them into the cloud pattern like so, or something like this. You can go totally your own way by taking advantage of advanced blending inside Photoshop. So no masking, no brushwork, no calculations, none of that stuff is required. We're just going to be adjusting a few numerical settings that you can change anytime you like. If, for example, you want to see more lightning or less, or more clouds for that matter. Now notice that we're seeing these just fine tendrils of lightning inside the clouds. It's as if we're witnessing the moment, the birth of this lightning inside this cloud as it interacts electrically with the surface of the earth. Whatever kind of science is going on, I don't know that stuff, but it's absolutely amazing given that it's 100% dynamic. Again, I want to emphasize no masking. Now, if I have any complaint about what we're seeing, and I don't really, I mean, look at some of this stuff. Isn't that amazing? So organic. But here's the problem. If I'll just select this region so you can see what I'm talking about. If I were to turn the lightning layer off, notice that the clouds are pretty uniformly kind of peach colored. Let's say a little purplish, peachy, whatever. But the lightning has its own color and it's infusing its color. Notice that with the clouds. So we're having a kind of bounce off the lightning. And as a result, we have drifty colors going on. Now, I love this, the way the lightning kind of, you can see you can see it emerging, blurry at first, unfocused behind a bunch of clouds, and then emerging into this bolt right here. That's awesome. However, we do have some wayward colors. As I'm saying, top right corner, we have some posterization up here at the top. Notice that goes away. If I turn off the lightning layer, it goes away entirely, and then I turn it back on. So if you don't want that, if you want to do a better job still, then you can take advantage of even more advanced blending. Look at this. Everything, if nothing else, we don't have any color drifting. And even where we have this kind of posterization, it looks deliberate. It looks very much on purpose, and we have a lot more lightning showing up inside the clouds, and we have even better lightning origin going on right there and so forth. And this is just a function of still more advanced blending using an option I bet you've seen, but I bet you've wondered what in the world it's doing inside Photoshop. And so here's how we're going to work this. I'm going to show you, in this video, I'm going to show you how to pull off this effect right here, which is no mean feat. So feel joyful about that. Now, I should say that both of these photographs come to us from the Dreamtime image library. Link in the description. Now, I did at a point consider using photographic clouds because, after all, photographic clouds are a dime a dozen. However, photographic lightning is harder to come by. In fact, what we're seeing here is a composite of a couple of different lightnings going on just to make sure we have plenty of lightning to work with. I considered not working with photographic lightning and trying AI instead, because AI lightning is really super easy to come by. All you do is enter the word lightning as a prompt and away you go, right? And by the way, what we're looking at comes to us from Firefly, Adobe Firefly. This is model 2, by the way, so the most recent model. Thing is, it's not quite up to snuff. Is it? I don't think so. I specifically asked for no ground and no clouds, and yet I still got clouds and ground. Now that I can crop out. But here's the problem. If I zoom in a little bit here, you can see that we do have big, thick bolts, and we've got some flares going on. We've got these fine tendrils and the whole number. We've got branches going on all over the place. But we also have rounding. It's also, we have this kind of image smoothing going on, which is not okay. and does not look photographic. I'm sure that'll get better over time, but that is why I decided to use a real photograph as we're seeing right here. Now for the basics. The first thing you want to do is select the top layer, right? Because the top layer is in the driver's seat where the blending is concerned. All we're doing is blending 2 layers here, but if you select the clouds layer and change its blend mode to overlay, nothing happens because it's not in a driver's seat. It's that you just tried to make it blend with the stuff below it, and there is no stuff below it. So no reason to do that. Instead, you want to select the top layer. In this case, it's the lightning layer, and you want to change its blend mode. And so what we want to do is drop out the dark stuff and keep the bright stuff. Problem is, there's a lot of in-between stuff, right? So it's not like the lightning is set against a black background. It's set against a very bright blue background. And then we've got all kinds of light drift all over the place. You could try to mask that, but you're going to get jagged edges is the problem because it's such incredibly fine detail. And then as you mask away the big thick stuff, then you're going to also, when you get rid of this blurry drift, for example, you're going to get rid of the fine details. That's no way to work. So what we want to do is apply a blend mode. Now, I'll click here on normal. Lightning's a good place to start just from trying to understand what's going on here, or Lighten, that is, not lightening. It's missing the gerund. But the idea here is it's keeping the lightest pixel between the two, between the lightning layer and the clouds layer, whichever one is light on a pixel by lightest, that is on a pixel by pixel basis. But it's doing so on a channel by channel basis as well. So right here, for example, the lightning could be brighter in the red channel, but it could be darker as well, or it could be brighter in the green channel. Do you understand what I'm saying? Channel by channel differences. And so what that means is we have a lot of weird color variations that don't make really that much sense. It's as if we're looking at an image that's been faded somehow over time. Now, if you want to get rid of that kind of color gook, then what you do is you switch to the very next blend mode screen and everything smooths out beautifully. However, just as I was saying, all that semi-bright stuff contributes to the brightness as well. So the only thing that's not going to brighten is black. White brightens, pardon me, absolutely. Black, not at all. And then all the other shades in between. Color dodge would just be a poor choice for this effect. I'm going to go with screen. What I want to do, though, now is drop out the dark stuff. And that's something you can do using an option called current layer. To get to it, one of 2 ways to get to it, you can either double click on the thumbnail for the layer, but that's only going to work with the pixel-based layer. If you've got a smart object, that's not going to work. It's going to take you to the smart object. You're going to be able to edit it if you want to. You'll edit text if you double click on a text layer, and you'll edit the fill of a shape if you double click on a shape layer, and so forth. So the safest thing to do is double click on an empty portion of the layer, such as this region right here, which is invariably going to bring up this big, massive layer style dialog box, which takes you to all the layer effects such as drop shadow and all those guys. We're looking for blending options, which includes the blend mode and opacity. We just changed the blend mode a moment ago, but now we're seeing these sliders right here, current layer, underlying layer. Come to those in a second. You'll hear people call these the blend if sliders. They are not. Blend if : refers to this option right here. That's it.
Real quick, ever wonder what the actual blend if setting actually does and how you can use it to turn something that's already pretty great into something even better? Then join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/SteekNow. And now back to advanced blending in Photoshop.
It's not blend if current layer. That doesn't even make any sense. Or blend if underlying layer. It's blend if this thing. Blend if gray means the composite image. That's what I'm going to be showing you. If you go to my Patreon, you'll see me talk about red, green, and blue, which are the independent color channels. That makes things a lot more powerful, but a lot more complicated as well. So more advanced is what I'm saying. We'll stick with gray. Now, current layer, underlying layer,
Pretty straightforward so far, because current layer is lightning and underlying layer is clouds. So we can see them right here next to the sliders. The thing is, what happens if we have more layers going on? Well, current layer is always one layer, that single selected layer, nothing more. Underlying layer, if there were more layers below clouds, it would be the composite view of all those layers mashed together. Now, we have 0 to 55. What's that about? That goes with the color ramp associated with this slider that you can see right here, black to white. 0 is black, 255 is white. Why? 0 makes sense, right? Because 0 luminance, black. Whereas 255 luminances, gather them together, they equal white. Why 255? Well, that's because there's actually 256 of them inside of an 8-bit image. On a channel-by-channel basis, 256 different luminance levels. It's just that 0, the black counts. So it's one of them, even though it's 0. It counts, and then you'd have to take that away, and so it's 255 for white. Anyway, that's the way it is, in case you're curious. Now, notice this black slider right here. Let's say I drag it up, because that's what I want to do, right? I want to drop away the darkest colors on this lightning layer, so I'm going to move it up, let's say to 128, because that's medium gray. That's basically, if you took 256 divided by 2, you'd get 128. So that's saying that all the darkest colors are now dropping away and all the brightest colors are visible. However, as you can see right here, that creates a kind of jagged transition. Notice that. And so we're having all this pixelation occur. That's because it's an on-off proposition right now. Either it's a dark pixel and it's hidden, it's turned off, or it's a bright pixel and it's turned on, set to the screen mode. What we want is a little bit of what's known, really truly, as fuzziness between these two values, and you get that. Notice there's this tiny little vertical cleft inside that triangle. Press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag this guy, and now you pull those two halves of the triangle apart and you get a little bit of a gradient going on. It's pretty noisy at this point because we don't have a lot of room to work with, but now we're saying anything with a brightness value luminance level of 101 or darker is dropping away, it's transparent, and anything with 128 or brighter, we can see that subject to the screen mode. And then in between 101 and 128, that is the drift, the fuzziness that's occurring in between. All right, and if you move them back together like this, then they're fused back together again until you press the Alt key or the Option key in order to make things right. All right, what I'm going to do, I got to go up here and choose Fit on Screen from the View menu, just so we can see the composite image in all of its glory. What I'm going to do is take this guy way up, because I don't want these big, fat tendrils of lightning. That's no good. I want them to be very thin. In fact, I want them to be very, very thin. So in this case, if I left the slider right here, 255, I'm saying basically everything except white is transparent, and only the white pixels on this layer are showing up. That's going to give us very jagged transitions. Indeed, we're losing all the fine detail. So I'm going to take this guy down to 245. And so that gives us 10 levels of luminance right there that are going to be opaque, that we're going to see subject to the screen mode. And screen's blasting those bright colors, so they're looking very bright indeed. But we do have some tendrils left. They do have jagged transitions, however. So I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag the left half of this. Do you see it break from the right half? There's a bright right half. It's hard to see because it's almost under the white one. That's why you don't want to move it all the way under, because it's hard to get to in that case. I'm just saying. And so I'm going to take this guy to 160. Notice that. Now you can't edit these numbers. I wish you could. I wish you could just double click on them or something and change them. Can't. And that's the way it's been inside Photoshop forever and ever, but you can see them. And so this is saying 160 and darker are fading away. They're invisible. And then 160 to 245 are gradually fading into view, so that we do have these sort of soft transitions, natural transitions, and then 245 to 255 is opaque. All right, so that's so far so good, right? I'm going to click OK, just so you can see that we've already made this enormous difference. This is before, blasting light all over the clouds,
really not an effect I can imagine you'd ever want unless you wanted this effect. There might be a reason. I don't know what you're going for. This, though, I think is cleaner. And as a result, we have lightning all over the place, right? Individual, just tiny little fine hairs of lightning. Isn't that awesome? Problem is, right? This is lightning cast by another cloud. Now, I know somebody's going to say, that's not how lightning works. Lightning comes from, nor and 90% of lightning or something like that comes from the ground up to the clouds. I don't care. Doesn't matter. This is not a science class. I'm just saying that this lightning, the way we're seeing it right here, is coming from a totally different cloud because it's in front of this one. What I want it to do is come out of this cloud. So double click. Oh, look at that guy right there. I want you to see it. That little box thing right there, that shows you that you've done something with the advanced blending options. And so what you can do, you can right click on that, by the way, and choose clear layer style. I know it's a lot, right? But that would get rid of it if you don't want it anymore. I'm going to undo that change. That's what that's there for, is to show you a visual cue that you've done something. Anyway, I'm going to double click on an empty portion once again of that layer in order to bring this back. And now we want to look at the underlying layer slider. Now, it works pretty much the same, except the opposite, the other way around. So instead of current layer is making pixels invisible, it's making luminance levels invisible, making them drop out. Underlying layer is making them force through. So if I were to move this black slider up, I'm forcing through the dark stuff. Anything that's 126 or darker is going to force through the layer above it, which is this guy right here, lightning. And that's not remotely what we want, because then the lightning is only inside, kind of clumsily inside this cloud, and it's not going out of the cloud. It's got to go out of the cloud. So let's go ahead and take this guy all the way back. And instead what we want to do is bring some of the light stuff from the clouds out. We want to force the lightest colors in the cloud through. And that way we get this wonderful interaction we're seeing right here. Wonderful, Deke, you might caution, you might question. Is it really wonderful to take this just to 150 and say anything with the luminance level of 150 or brighter is going to force through, which is what's happening here? From the cloud, not the lightning. It's forcing the cloud to be visible and the lightning to be invisible in this range. And then anything from 0 to 150 is visible. Problem is, we have the same problem we had before. We have very jagged transitions, as we're seeing right here. And we have a very blocky looking image as well, which is why you need to do that same trick. It's got a cleft, a little cleft in the middle of it, so you can press the Alt key, Option key on the Mac, and drag this guy so that you're dragging in half, and now you're fading the transitions, aren't you? Isn't that wonderful? I'm going to zoom out once again so we can see the entire composition. Oh my goodness, look at all that. These individual tendrils of lightning are just sitting there and surviving on their own without your masking, without you having to get in there and click on little pixels in order to make them survive. This is just happening because by the numbers, because Photoshop knows this is the way it should work, and it's creating these nice natural interactions as we're seeing here. So ultimately, I came up with, actually, I'm going to take this up a little bit. I came up with 160 before the slash and 220 after the slash. So anything that's 0 to 160, so the dark stuff, is just being treated naturally. It's not being forced through, so the lightning is appearing in front of it and so forth. Whereas anything 220 or brighter is being forced all the way through. The clouds, once again, is what we're talking about, because that is the underlying layer. And then anything between 160 and 220 is fading in based on its luminance levels. So the darker stuff is going to be more transparent, more translucent than the brighter stuff, so that we have these nice organic transitions, at which point all you got to do is click OK in order to accept that change. And now let's see what kind of difference that made.
That's before I changed anything having to do with underlying slider. That's before I changed current slider. That's before I changed the blend mode. This is after I applied screen. This is after I made the modification to the current layer slider. And this is after I made the final modification to the underlying layer slider. Now, just wait 1 second here. This isn't what I showed you we were going to do, is it? This is what we were going to do, which is why it's so awesome that if you prefer this effect, you can make it happen right now just by once again double-clicking on Lightning, an empty portion of that Lightning layer, and modifying these values right here where this is concerned. And so I'm going to take this guy down to 110, let's say, so that, in other words, I'm dropping out more of the Lightning, but what I'm really doing is forcing through more of the clouds. And then I'm going to bring this guy in as well. So I'm tucking the Lightning into the clouds. I'm really taking the pillowy clouds and wrapping them around the Lightning by taking both of these values down. So now 110 and darker is, subject to lightning. We're seeing lightning all over the place. 160 and brighter is forcing through so that we have less lightning. We have more clouds. And then 110 to 160 is fading into view. And now I'll click OK.
So what do you think? Best feature in Photoshop? Drop me a comment. Not to mention like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And if you're ready for some truly advanced blending that makes what you've seen so far look like child's play, join me at patreon.com/Deke now. Then go to Deke.com and sign up for my newsletter. I'm Deke McClelland. This is Deke Now.